Hi guys, welcome back to another video, and in today's video I'm going to be talking about Disney's River Country abandoned water park. So River Country was a 6-acre water park owned by Disney. It opened in May 1976 but closed by 2001. There are many theories to why it closed, but Disney never came out and said the real reason. So back whenever River Country first opened, it was for the general public, it was $4.75 for adults and $3.75 for children. As well as if you were a club member, it was $4 for adults and $3 for children. And now the equivalent of it would be about $15.50 for the general public and $11.50 for club members. The location of River Country was right next to Bay Lake, so it actually used the water from Bay Lake to power up all the rides and to filter through the pools. And it was not too far from Magic Kingdom, and you could access it from the Contemporary, or you can access it from the Wilderness Campground. The slides are still in place today, but they are grown over by plant life, and nature has pretty much taken it over. The pools are still full, and there are safety signs not to go in. If you go into it now and you try to explore the abandoned park, you can get the consequences of never being able to step on Disney property again. It has been completely abandoned for 16 years now. For this park, visitors and guests are pretty much a thing of the past. So you can see this park very visibly by boat, going back and forth between Magic Kingdom and the Wilderness Lodge or the Contemporary. You can see it from the Contemporary, you can see it from the Wilderness Lodge, I believe, as well as a Wilderness Campground. You can actually get to it from the Contemporary and from the campground. Because it's like right off of Bay Lake. It actually uses Bay Lake's water to filter through its systems, and that's most likely part of the reason why it closed down, was because it was connected to Bay Lake, and I'll get into that later into this video. River Country pretty much had a rustic theme to it, to go along with the Fort Wilderness campground, and pretty much kind of to blend in with the campground. It was the first theme park to have trestle supported slides, and it was built out of fiberglass. It opened at the end of May 1976, and its grand opening was June 19, 1976. On opening day, 700 reporters and family were in attendance. President Ford's 18-year-old daughter was in attendance on this day, and she actually helped open the park, and she was the first to go down the 260 feet Whoopin' Holler water slide into Bay Cove. There was about 4,700 guests per day at River Country. The park had very limited capacity because of its size. It was only 6 acres, and this would cause the park to shut down its gates on very many days whenever it became full to capacity. So no one can enter until other people left, pretty much. And it also had very little parking. You pretty much had a park and then travel to the park by bus or tram. And for the first few years, you could also travel to it by Fort Wilderness Railroad that closed in the early 1980s. By 2001, it cost about $16.91 to get into the park. Now that would be equivalent to $23. It pretty much consisted of Bay Cove, which was the swimming hole, Whoopin' Holler, which consisted of a 260 feet slide and a 160 feet slide to plunge down into Bay Cove. These slides consisted of fiberglass and sharp turns at a very high speed. It was a very rough experience. Whitewater Rapids was pretty much lazy river style until you got to a certain point, then you would plunge down at a high speed into the pool. Cable ride, which was pretty much a zip line into the pool. Tire swing, which was like it sounds, it was a tire swing into the pool. The cable ride and tire swing sat on a tiny island at River Country. And there was Kiddie Cove for the little kids, which consisted of 4 smaller slides, Sandy Beach, Slippery Falls, which was a 7 feet drop. You can bring your own food and have a picnic while at River Country, so you didn't necessarily have to buy their food. You were able to bring your own. And they always had 1 to 5 characters in the park. Goofy was their main mascot. Chip and Dale would also sometimes tag along. Pluto and Minnie would sometimes tag along for the All-American pool party. River Country was not universally loved. Its rough nature and big drops made it very hard for the weaker swimmers, so it was a park geared towards the stronger swimmers. It closes gates toward the end of the warmer season of 2001, and it said that it would close temporarily for a remodel and never reopened. On April 11th, 2002, it was said to possibly reopen by the end of 2002, but by January 20th, 2005, Disney announced they will never reopen it again. Like I said earlier in this video, Disney never came out and said why they will not reopen it. So one of the reasons that River Country ever opened was pretty much so Disney can have their first water park. And another major reason was because of the gasoline crash of 1973, which was whenever, for those of you who do not know, people were limited to how much gas they can get per day, and you can only get gas on certain days. And pretty much because of that, you couldn't travel very far distances because you wouldn't have enough gasoline to be able to get to certain distances. So people who live further away from Disney weren't really able to visit it during this time until the ban was lifted. And that pretty much this crash was because of limited gasoline. And so this was Disney's way of enticing guests to want to visit their parks even more, because at the time there was only Magic Kingdom. Now I'm going to talk about the potential causes for River Country to ever close. The safety, or should I say lack thereof. In 1982, a 14-year-old boy named Howard actually had difficulties after the whoop and holler drop that he ended up drowning. There was over 75 people that needed assistance after the drop from the whoop and holler. 13-year-old boy named Christopher Staff also died 7 years after the first boy from difficulties from the same drop. These safety things were highly unlikely for the closure, mostly because of them happening in the early years of River Country, and the park still continued to operate many years later. Another reason was because of rare deadly amoeba that was in the water and new Florida state laws. The new law that was passed by Florida was a swimming hole or swimming area that was open to the public could not be connected to fresh water or a lake due to the amoeba. This amoeba could be deadly. River Country closed quickly after this law was passed, so this was most likely the reason that River Country closed. There were 4 victims that were affected by the deadly amoeba in the Florida freshwater. Another reason could have been because of competition. In 1977, SeaWorld opened their water park named Wet n Wild. So, before River Country was even open, the only amusement park was Magic Kingdom, and then by 1986, Epcot was built. In 1989, Typhoon Lagoon was open, and Blizzard Beach to follow in 1995. Because of these 3 new parks being open by Disney, River Country's attendance was on the lower side, mostly to do with because of how small it was and how there was not much to do there. These 3 parks are quite a bit bigger than River Country ever was, and these 3 parks are actually open to this day, and pretty much Typhoon Lagoon and Blizzard Beach pretty much replaced River Country. In 1996, Epcot was open. In 1988, Animal Kingdom was open, and then in 1989, Typhoon Lagoon was open, and then to follow in 1995, Blizzard Beach was open. River Country was no longer the hub of attractions on Bay Lake, and these 4 parks were substantially bigger than River Country, and because of the lack of things to do in River Country, people wanted to go to the other 4 parks more than River Country, so attendance became on the lower side. And pretty much Typhoon Lagoon and Blizzard Beach practically replaced River Country. And pretty much another reason was because of the capacity. It can only hold 5,000 guests per day. So until in whenever it originally closed, it was going to reopen, but part of the reason why it never reopened was because of the September 11th attacks on the World Trade Centers, and travel became low at this time because of people being afraid to travel with all the terrorist attacks going on. So because of the 9/11 attacks, attendance revenue plummeted. So pretty much River Country's closure went from a temporary closure to a permanent. By 2002, it became non-profitable for Disney. Without the attacks happening, there was a possibility for it to be open a few more years. But unfortunately, the attacks had to mess that up. So with Disney's 4 theme parks and 2 new water parks, pretty much Disney outgrew River Country. Disney decided they were just going to keep it in place and not demolish it and stop the upkeep of it. Because of this, everything began to overgrow. Pools, being that the pools are connected to Bay Lake, there's still water in all the pools, but it's very unwelcoming. Beaches are now unusable. The artificial rocks that were used as decoration are cracked and damaged. That's pretty much the whole story of River Country. I will put all my sources linked down below for you guys to check it out if you want to read more about it, because there are some things that I left out for the sake of time. I hope you enjoyed my first abandoned video. You can also check out my James Dean video, which I will have linked at the end of this video. If you enjoyed this video, give it a big thumbs up. If you want to see more videos from me, hit the subscribe button as well as hitting that bell to be notified when I post new videos. And I'll see you guys in my next video on Friday. Bye guys!